Happy Friday. Happy Good Friday. We're going to do politics. Big picture politics. You probably heard there's an F-15 shot down, there's a Black Hawk helicopter shot down, there's a Warthog shot down. It's real bad. It's getting worse. I need a Mr. Snurdly because my light like flickers on and off. See? It's like a cool effect. Okay. It's real bad. And it's going to get worse. And there's no way out. And Trump is like King Lear screaming at the sky, like, blow winds. Or he's like Jack going through the maze. Daddy! He's lost his mind. But you know how we roll here. You almost have to ask yourself, is there some other agenda other than the absurdity of Trump and Hegseth and like all these people that are just clearly clowns and fucktards, and it's not really a real administration by any stretch of the imagination. It almost appears to be like a clown posse that's meant to, and this is what we're going to get into. It almost feels like it's meant to fail. You know what I mean? It almost feels like it's meant to take what's left of America, of what little goodness and honesty of America that there is, and just wash it all away. And it's truly my belief that that's what the war on terror is. The war on terror is a takedown of what's left of the American Republic, what's left of the balance sheet of the American people, because now we have negative equity. If we have $40 trillion, we're borrowing $200 billion a month. We'll soon be borrowing more money per year than we had totaled on 9/11. We had about $3 trillion of debt. So what we need is like a 100-year plan. We went to war with Russia, like France and Germany, and like France and Germany, we will never recover from it. We will never recover from Gaza. We will never recover America as a brand. We'll never recover from what we have done senselessly to the global economy. Like, we're supposed to be the people that are running the global economy, right? We're supposed to have the Navy because it keeps everybody free and safe, right? And even the brown people are allowed to. I was really, really enjoyed hearing. Let me get this vacuum out of my way. It's really glad to hear Elon Mizrahi set up this thing where white people, white men in particular, and Jewish white men, it puts them together. Actually, Ashkenazis are white and Caucasian. That they're incapable of even considering that someone who's not of their race, if you're into race, I'm not really into race. I don't think there is such a thing as race, but let's all be friends. That we could be outclassed, outfoxed, out technologized, out strategized, and we clearly have been. We're losing much faster than people realize, because we're probably losing like the worst that anything's happened in the English-speaking world or the Western world probably since 1066, when the Vikings, the Normans, they're basically Vikings, conquered England. And, we're being driven out. It just take Mizrahi's thing. He keeps saying West Asia, like what is a West Asia? That's like a contradiction in terms. But so Eurasia is like this, right? On the other side is Vietnam. Remember, we did that in the 60s. This time we're doing this thing, this impenetrable thing that's like Vietnam, only not with jungles, but with mountains. And it just so happens that 20% of everything flows through this little like vagina cavity called the Straits of Hormuz. Not to be foul, but that's sort of what it looks like. And our Navy is supposed to keep this thing open. So Donald Trump this week, I mean, this is very profound, just said to our allies and around the world, if you want oil, go get it. So the President of the United States has surrendered. Trump has surrendered. The rule of the oceans has been surrendered. For the first time since Queen Elizabeth or something like that. First time in 500 years that the English-speaking world said, well, we're not going to be able to handle them. And then in just this absurd Trumpian way, he's like, take it, just go take it, go get it, just go get it. And then he says later in the afternoon, he's like, I have to, no, I won't even go there. It's just everything he says is absurd, loser Iran. It was over in the first hour. It was over in the first hour. The way we approached the war, the way Iran returned. In case you don't know, the national sport in Iran is wrestling. And really super wrestlers, like the guy who coaches Penn State, he never lost. He never lost. Like 170 matches or something like that since he was 10 years old. He never lost. And the way you never lose is you can't just be good. You can't just be strong. You never make a mistake. Iran is not making any mistakes. They're not overcommitting themselves. They're not wearing themselves out. They're not giving the other side an excuse to do something crazy, like a tactical nuclear weapon. So America should start thinking about what it was like when Napoleon came back from Russia. Or, Germany has never recovered from either war, one or two. And I'm not because I don't love my country and I'm not patriotic, but we will never recover the America that we grew up with. The dollar, the Navy, the military, the culture of everybody deserves some sort of chance, like something. No, we just gonna run around and just blow up people that are weaker than us. Every stereotype of like the ugly American Yankee is what Trump is now. We should make 100-year plan. So I got you. As usual, I got you. So you put the dumbbell on the door so the wind doesn't blow it open and closed. It's a lot worse than you think. It's not going to be just we pick up a couple seats in Congress and, maybe have another goddamn impeachment hearing. What we need for what has happened are literally military tribunals. Donald Trump and his crew, Lutnig and Kushner, and what's the other one? And then the guy who's the head of the Jewish Council who says, yeah, Jews run everything. If you really understand these people should be tried for high treason. There's an FBI document that says that Israel has compromised Trump, President of the United States. So American foreign policy is being run by a foreign government that is really not allied with American ideals uh, or represents the American people in any way. They're traitors. They're corrupt, legally racketeering gangsters running the federal government. This isn't, we're going to pick up a couple seats. We need like a Truth and Reconciliation Commission or the ICJ. None of these things are going to happen in the next couple of years. So it's going to be probably decades. I mean, how long has it taken us to deal with the fact that JFK was shot? Right? What, 60 years later? It's going to take decades to deal with what just happened to the federal government. On the other side of that, we need Reconstruction. This is a lot like the Civil War. I was right about this for 5 years, and I would just, it's going to be like Gone with the Wind or something. Yeah, it is. That's what you're in right now. You're watching Atlanta burn. You're watching Jefferson Davis run out of money, run out of ideas, run out of... Remember, Grant when Grant took over and became the general of the army, he had, just full reign of everything. There's 5 armies attacking the Confederacy, 5 separate independent. Iran is operating with 31 separate provincial authorities. There's really 31 Irans that we're fighting. We need military tribunals at the federal level, which is not going to happen for decades. There'll be some sort of, after the fact, after everybody's dead and gone, review of what happened. I mean, if you wanted to do it the right way, what we would do is start it right now, put a pin in 9/11 and say, we have no idea what the war on terror is about. We don't know where it came from. We don't know how the buildings went down. You can't knock down 110-story buildings made out of steel with jet fuel. You can't. It's not enough energy. Just not enough energy. We have Larry Silverstein who says we pulled it. Nothing happens to him. We have all of these criminals. There's not like the federal government and like some criminals on the edges. Federal government is a criminal gangster enterprise. And you're seeing this more and more. The states... I do have some good news. By the way, this is a Pils, like a Pilsner by Sierra Nevada. Solid. I guess this is the kind of thing that's going to have to happen. I'm not being just like wallowing in my negativity and pessimism just because that's my personality. It's just that the Democratic Party is just this blob party of nothing. Like, they're very concerned, and Bernie Sanders needs $27, and they're not going to do dick. However, the victims of Epstein are doing a kind of RICO, and I don't know a lot about law, so just bear with me. The victims are going after Wexner in New York State. Now that's interesting because that's where the building was. Lutnick was right beside him. Ehud Barak was in the building. See how this works? You could just start from New York and just start to make like not an ICJ kind of a war criminal thing, but this RICO like takedown of the whole infrastructure, which means all the securities laws and banking laws. And why did you wire that money to him? You see where I'm going with this? Mr. Lutnick, why did you live beside him? Did you have any contact with him? Did you have any financial connection to him? So Wexner was Epstein's client as an investment advisor. That's my job, by the way, for the last 15 years too. So Epstein had one client, Wexner. Wexner's a Chicago mobster. He's Hyman Roth. It's just that simple. And they're both connected to the Rothschilds. Like, who's going to take on who's going to take on the trillionaires? But that's my point to you, is that the only way America survives is, it's not this big left-right bullshit thing that Trump is Mussolini and, Nancy Pelosi's a communist or something like that. Like, all that bullshit that we've grown up with, it misses the point. Like Obama, okay? Obama announced his presidency in the co-founder of the Weathermen. Did you ever absorb that? I don't know. I just read that Dan Rather and fucking Donald Rumsfeld had a 10,000 acre ranch right beside Epstein's ranch in New Mexico. Everywhere you look, it's racketeering, gangsterism, an interwoven criminal network that occupies the federal government. I think it occupies the state government, but to a lesser extent, because we're closer to them. We need some sort of military tribunals, Nuremberg, ICJ, racketeering. I don't know. This isn't my specialty. Which leads me to, every once in a while when I'm thinking about this, I'm like, where are all the people that I went to the Ivy League with? Why is there no one else talking about this shit? I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. I think the answer for that is, like, we're all Epsteiners in a way. You follow me? We're all in on it. We all want the stock market to go up. No one's going to lose their job saying something at the water cooler about this shit. That's no. Mm-mm. So our democracy doesn't really function if you get taken over by a kind of Gestapo with trillions of dollars and nobody does anything. You're just fucked. It's going to be 100 years till we get out of it. But the conservatives, they're the ones that installed the whole thing. Not the lesbians, not the woke, not the blacks, not the Marxists. No. The American white male Christian Republican thing installed this thing that we can't get rid of. So we need some sort of very, very significant pushback legally. It's not just going to be pick up a few seats in Congress. And then we need reconstruction. So let's talk about finance for a minute. It's about $4.5 trillion in private equity. In the private credit, there's equity and debt. So the debt's called credit. I think there's one fund from Blue Owl, that was owl like the bird, that had 41% redemptions this week, almost half. There's no revenue to justify any of these investments. The investments became a number, the money being poured in created the market cap, which justified the money being poured in. That sounds like a simplistic way to define a bubble, but this was in other words, if everybody chases a stock and the stock goes up and up and up, the stock going up becomes the perfect reason for, but it's even worse than that. The proof that AI was viable was the market cap, not the business. You follow me? And then we didn't even do this in the .com. It was always, the internet was going to take over everything, which it did. But this is now just the money being sunk into this industry justifies the industry. It's not even any sort of return of capital. It's the money going into the black hole that is the justification for the market cap. It's and if you look at the NASDAQ, it's rolling over and there's very, very little. So we're going to lose the NASDAQ. And I think more profoundly, we're going to lose the private equity. And really, in our lifetime since Reagan, we like went into the 80s bubble. We had 1987. And then we went into the 90s and the tech thing arrived. And Alan Greenspan said, basically, I think, one day he said something about irrational exuberance. And then a couple months later, they just realized that the Fed's job was just to get out of the way. Just let the market cap run itself. Let the market cap, let the stock market, let the asset prices run the economy. Okay. So in my lifetime, shortly after the end of the Cold War, this is how the American economy, we don't really have the underlying assets to justify 50% of the world's stock market. What we have is a new thing called the stock market that creates market cap. If you think about it, it's actually better than having the industry. It's like magic. You can just make money from nothing. And then so AI became sort of the fairy tale of why we're able to make $25 trillion out of 7 companies. So as this reverses around the world, we're going to see double-digit inflation. We're going to see tractors in Australia that don't have any diesel fuel, so they don't plant. India without fertilizer. I don't know, things made in Korea and China that are packaged in plastic, except they won't have any packaging because the packaging comes from natural gas. We're looking at double-digit inflation around the world. The whole thing that America made post-World War II, the whole global system, we just destroyed in the last month. And it's now going to be run by Muslims. Irony of irony. The war on terror. Remember the war on terror? Like the Muslims wanted to blow us all up. And now like all of our strategic assets in West Asia are being taken over as we speak by the Muslims, by Islam. It's so completely out of control. You have to, I genuinely don't have the answer to this. You have to stop and wonder if this wasn't the goal. You follow me? Like to grind down America, put it in its place as just a place that makes soybeans and natural gas and some space stuff so that can be controlled and repatriate all the oil and gas in the Gulf to go to Asia. In other words, our American U.S. Navy dominance of the Gulf vaporizes and then everything gets split up differently. I could go 50-50 either way. Let's take a brief musical interlude. So speaking of being afraid of Americans, so we're getting off the dollar. Like that's just, we've all of us influencers have just all had our version, the petrodollars coming to an end, right? That's almost like annoying to even talk about. So what's replacing it? So Bruno started off as Bruno Crypto. And Bruno started off because I learned about blockchain from a guy who was a consultant to the biggest healthcare company in the United States. And when I heard about what he was doing, I said, oh my God, that's going to take over finance. And there's not 1,000 people in the world that understand this. And he said, yeah, you're right about both of those. So I spent a lot of time studying, different things in Cardano. I got the idea for the name Bruno, the Bruno guy that I think you can see right there is the statue and the square. He's staring at the Vatican because the Vatican put him to death in 1600. So I got the idea for that from Cardano, which is some other Italian, polymath guy. And that statue head was my screensaver on my iPad. And as I was closing out after reading about Cardano, I saw that and I was like, Bruno, that's a great name for a crypto project. And lo and behold, this week it's announced in the middle of all this horror and violence and blood and guts, the SWIFT banking system will be taken over by Ethereum. The SWIFT banking system is going to be replaced by Ethereum-based system. And for those of you who feel like subscribing, I produced a little thing with Manus that'll go up as soon as I'm done here that'll explain that to you. The whole world's banking system is going to run on Ethereum, and there's not 1,000 people in the English-speaking world that understand that. You want to hear that again? I thought it was XRP. I thought it was Ripple. The ships that are moving through the Straits of Hormuz right now, I think predominantly they're going to China and Pakistan. Iran is playing like a parlay with all the Muslim nations. Are you going to be good Muslims? You're going to work with the infidels. So whenever they do the money transfer, it's for either the yuan or the Russian ruble in a stable coin running on Ethereum. And we all had the sense that they kept telegraphing it to us for how long? The Great Reset's coming. And we had all these goofy theories, we're going to see aliens, there's going to be an EMF weapon that shuts down the banking system, right? You've heard all these things, like you're going to have to get something, drilled into your brain or something so you can make transactions, like, all this apocalyptos. It's here. It just happened. And it's Ethereum. And there's only 100 million Ethereum. And half of them are staked, which means there's only 50 million Ethereum. And the demand for Ethereum is going to be wildly bigger than Bitcoin because of this. Nobody does anything with Bitcoin, right? When you think about why was the US dollar became the US dollar after the Second World War? And it's a complex thing. If you like books, the book was written by Michael Hudson called Super Imperialism in 1972, 1 year after we went off the gold standard. And in 600 pages, he perfectly explains to you what it looks like to have the world's reserve currency 1 year after it happened. After we get off the gold standard, the US dollar can just be created in mass. It's not really printed. It's not like dollars. It's credit. It's a weird thing. Go read the book. Most people who think that they understand this don't. Most people who say that they understand how a reserve currency works, they really don't know. The other name I would drop in all this is Richard Werner, the German gentleman who explains that dollars come from banking, not from the Fed, not from the government. So the same week that they're blowing up the Gulf states, They hit the Citigroup building with a lawnmower. They hit the salination plant this morning. They've hit this, hotels. I think they blew up a Kuwaiti tanker loading oil, all the headlines you've seen. At the same time, literally the dollar recycling complex in the Persian Gulf is being blown up. It's being replaced with Ethereum. I'll bet you could be all night on social media and not find anybody else who puts those two things together. So, okay, here's the question I was trying to answer. Why did the dollar becomes obviously like the reserve currency and all that? Well, it's because we had aircraft carriers. Okay. Yeah, that's, because we can threaten people and blow them up if they don't act nice, like Libya or something like that. We had the industrial capacity at the time. During Bretton Woods, when they met in Rhode Island, we had at the end of the war like 2/3 of the world's gold reserves or 3/4 of the world's industrial capacity, or vice versa. I always get it mixed up. But anyways, we had everything. We had the aircraft carriers. We had the nuclear weapons. We had the Federal Reserve System, which could be spread around the world through the IMF and through the World Bank. In the last month, that's all been replaced. Just like, I don't even know what this means. Like, I've thought about it for like 5 years, talked about it for hours and hours. And I did like 2,000 live hours on TikTok talking about this stuff. I don't even know what happens from here. Digital currencies, currencies that can be turned off. Palantir can decide that, they don't like your social media content on Substack and just, turn off your checking account, or maybe just fuck with the Wi-Fi so you can't do a live. Maybe just, maybe you're driving across Minnesota in the middle of a snowstorm and your car shuts down and you just can't turn it back on and you freeze to death. Who would know? Who would know? I think there's been over 10,000 people arrested in the UK for social media content. The whole English-speaking world, constitutionality, illegal search, it's over. It's over. It's over. If you want it back, you're going to have to do what the victims are doing in New York. You're going to have to go state by state by state by state by state. It's like an upside down, inside out civil war. You follow me? Like, these are like, here's the map of the United States, and this group of countries, like states, like separated from the North, right? Blue and the gray and all that shit. Well, there's Washington, D.C., and it's controlled by the tech bros, which are in alliance with the Zionists. And that's a whole weird thing that I've done a lot of research on, trying to explain it, how like technology is the new law. There's no law on top of the technology. The technology is the law. And we've lost the federal government, and we may lose the states. But it's not all pessimism, people. It's not. That's why I'm doing this. But like AOC, yeah, AOC isn't gonna like take on the Rothschilds. You know what I mean? Like, it's just silly. And who was her sponsor when she ran? Two Israeli venture capitalists. Imagine that. So on the Reconstruction side, having run 0% interest rates for 15 years, it means that people who can assemble leverage, private equity and hedge funds, can just go literally seize everything into fund structures. Okay, you make a GP, they make a fund, the LPs invest inside of it, and millions and billions come in these things. So you have this big war chest. Literally, it's a war chest. It's a Viking ship. And you can go roll up all the pipelines, all the veterinarian clinics, all the this. There's some comedians, a hilarious guy on TikTok. He's like, you know, the one who like plays the PE guy. Yeah, I'm in PE and I moved into this place and I go to this country club. I forget his name. And one of his spoofs was, yeah, we're rolling up mobile vasectomy clinics or something like that. It's not like this thing just rolls in your neighborhood and all the suburban dads come out and get snipped and like, you know, get charged $2,700 or whatever it is. That's what America is. And it's all tied up and they can't get rid of it. And they're closing the gates. They're not giving the money back to their investors. The investors are not giving them more money. So part of this thing, while you watch Israel get pockmarked night after night after night, the next thing to go is the private equity. And those two things are related. The money from the Gulf that used to feed into private equity and provide the equity and the debt has been turned off. So they can't finish deals. There's no cash flow from the underlying host of the parasite to feed into the deals. There's not enough Jersey Mike sandwiches being sold, if you get the joke, to take these things and put them on the NASDAQ and go ding, ding, ding and sell them to us dumbasses. So $4 trillion is stuck in this great thing of private equity. So they're going to tokenize it and put it in your 401k. That's been announced since the war began too. And then yesterday they announced that half of the national force are going to be logged. Just take that in for a second. They have extracted everything. The only thing left was Jersey Mike's, and now they're going to go cut down the trees. They have nothing. And you know what's going to come next? And all the Western white men, Texas to Montana, they're going to sell off the fucking BLM land. And who's it going to go to? It's going to go to the same private equity guys who are then going to lease it back to the exact same people who were leasing it from the government at massively subsidized rates, right? They're just going to do like what was the guy in Argentina? Pinochet. They're Pinocheting America. And the fucking white male conservatives set this up on their own country with this goofball Christianity. And their whole economy, like their little girls, is just being raped. And no one says a word. Nobody can see through it. They're so what's his name? Joel Epstein, whatever, not Epstein. Austin. They're so fanatical in their goofball Gnostic Christianity. They can't even see. I mean, this is why I'm doing this thing, right? That I'm saying like, this is like 100-year project to get out of this. I mean, we now may not win. I mean, it might be over, people. They might just fucking take everything and just, you know, we're all going to succumb to like, I don't know, some sort of lung disease or something. They're cutting down the trees. The Mellon family over the ridge here in 2009, all their private equity, hundreds of billions of dollars, like Harvard or something, like their endowments, like 500 billion or some giant number. I don't know what it is. I'm just estimating. Well, they had no cash flow because all the private equity locked up. So what did they do? They went and just like cut all the lumber off the ridge, just have cash to like fix up Rolling Rock and pay some bills and shit. That's what the private equity people who are in control of Trump are now going to go do. They're going to go harvest the fucking wood out of our forests. But let's all the BLM thing is even worse. I mean, it's going to be the BLM. It's going to be water rights. It's going to be the Olagala aquifers. It's going to be the riverine. It's just going to go on and on. There's nobody to stop them. There's not. AOC is going to be very concerned, and it's going to happen anyways. We need a kind of military tribunal, and we need reconstruction. We didn't do either at the end of the Civil War. We let them all go. Jefferson Davis ran across the Rio Grande with a fucking dress on. You know, of course, it was the front page of every newspaper. And Robert E. Lee went and made a university called Washington and Lee. Completely unmolested for the rest of his life. What, 2.2 million people killed. I don't think we hung anybody. And Reconstruction never happened. And we are right back in the middle of a kind of like, it's a civil war going the other way. It's a civil war trying to go back to the antebellum South, where 1,000 people control all the natural resources of North America. So tomorrow there is some goodness. He's good. It's with Trent Reznor. Reznor is a company from Meadville, PA that makes natural gas space heaters. Industrial. He makes industrial music. Could there be a connection? There's no leadership or resistance or counter thesis in the system. Not AOC, not Jeffrey Sachs. Nobody really has. I mean, they say like we should have stayed on the track of like the American system and like fine, but we didn't. Okay, so like the thing got taken over by gangsters and it's over, and we're not going to like suddenly just, they're not just going to melt into the woodwork and we're going to go back to, I don't know, 1996 or something. No, they're not going to go away. What is interesting is their wealth is going to become like diseased cattle. They're going to become very, very vulnerable. They're going to become concerned about their safety. They're glib. They're, Wexner is in a deposition is like, Epstein's the guy that said I should count my forks and spoons. These people are so fucking arrogant. They think nothing can touch them. And let me say this, Linda. The reason Larry Silverstein says we pulled it is because he knows that the justice system and the courts are corrupt, and he knows he's untouchable. What do you mean? Why would a guy do an interview that goes on YouTube that says we pulled it? Like, I blew up like a $500 million building. What are you going to do about it? It's like Sinatra used to get in these like little dumbass fights because he thought he was like a gangster. And the gangster would say, Frank, if you do this again, like we're going to let them take you down because you're not going to let us get into these little pissant things. And the cops are going to come and the media is going to get a hold of it. Like, you know, whatever the gangsters were back then, I forget their names, right? Like this guy's defending Frank Sinatra and blah like that. They're like, Frank, you make another one of these fights and you're on your own. It's a lot like the thing from Carlito's Way when Dave Kleinfeld like pulls out a gun and the real gangster says, someone's going to stick that gun up your ass. Where that's what Israel has done. That's what Alex Karp has done. He is Dave Kleinfeld. That's what the Wexners have done, the Wexner Epstein thing. They're all up against something now, Iran, that they can't take down. Whether that was the desired outcome of this whole like giant 250-year Illuminati thing, I don't know. But that's where we are. The people that raped the kids and ate them are going to wake up to their wealth being in question. Their wealth is locking up. You follow me? Look at Jamie Dimon. He said it on I saw it on Zero Hedge. He's like, we need to finish this thing, Iran, and we need to finish it the right way. These people think that nothing matters to them. F-15s getting shot down, Ranger battalions being deployed. Nothing touches them. They have New York locked down. They have the trillions locked down. They're connected to the Federal Reserve. Nothing can touch them. But when it does touch them, they're going to be out of their mind. If Israel sort of runs America like through some sort of weird gangster thing that we sort of understand, sort of don't, the really scary thing is that Israel as a fundamental state could fail. The head of the IDF said that this week. The head of the IDF said that the IDF could collapse. What does that do for like finance in America if the IDF collapses? If like Hezbollah like overruns Haifa, what are we going to do? Are we going to send like a couple 100,000 U.S. troops to offset them? It's a better than 50% chance that that's going to happen. Somewhere. It may not be Israel proper. It may be Dubai. It may be Riyadh. Might be Kuwait. You follow me? Like, is literally the map of West Asia, as Mizrahi calls it, is becoming more and more like Iranian. Like every hour, every day, they're not seasoning it with like troops like World War II, where there's like a line and, people are shooting each other the line. No, they made this new kind of warfare that's just like missiles come out of the mountains somewhere and just hit targets. Jamie Dimon has no fucking idea what's going on. Think about that for a minute. The biggest bank in the United States. What is it, 4 trillion or something like that? He has no idea what just happened. And the UAE and Saudi Arabia are like, on our side, which means Iran's going to destroy them both. And all of the oil in the Middle East will be controlled by Iran. I hope there's some big Illuminati, multi-century Armageddon apocalypto plan behind all this, because it's so much worse than the American elites lead on to. and it's never gonna they're not gonna make a deal and like, "Oh, sorry, like, you killed our little girls at school, like, sorry we blew up your shit." So, tomorrow we'll do Leaves of Grass. Americans are gonna start to think about investing in America whether they want to or not, because all the other stuff will be seen as corrupt, absurd, fake, extractive. Um, there's $4 or $5 trillion worth of extracted assets that have no cash flow and have no way to go public and are locked up. So noon tomorrow, we'll do Leaves of Grass and start talking about what to invest in. And if you're subscribing, I'm going to do some questions here. As soon as I'm done here, I'm going to put up that thing about Ethereum taking over the banking system. That's the biggest headline. It's the biggest headline in 100 years in finance, and no one has any knowledge of it. Holy shit, there's a lot of these. I used to do this all the time on TikTok, and I haven't done it on here. Europe is gone. NATO's over. That's done. So Trump is really overseeing the greatest retreat, not just like a loss, like a battle like Pearl Harbor or Vietnam. You just lived through the greatest retreat of Western military domination ever. I'm going to do that again. I mean, we were kicked out of the Middle East a couple times. There were 4 crusades. The last one ended up like attacking Constantinople. So there's really only 3 of them. And we got driven out of the Middle East. But this is worse. This isn't just like who gets to control Jerusalem. Our friend Alon Mizrahi, who used to be in the IDF, was a young man. He's the only person I've found with like this big 1,000-year, 2,000-year vision of what just happened in what he calls West Asia. And literally, we're just being like driven out with, we're not going to send in like 3,000 Marines or something and stop this thing. They're just destroying all these like little pseudo colonies of Western imperialism that you and I know as is Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, to some degree, Oman. They're all, within 6 months, they're all going to be completely controlled by Iran. It's the greatest surrender of Western military domination ever. Ever. Maybe you'd throw in like the Russians beating back the Nazis. Russians are sort of European and sort of not, so that's sort of a hybrid. But this is like a pure West versus non-West kind of a thing. They have nothing in common with each other. Religion, shared history, nothing. And we're losing. There's probably a new headline. Let's take a look. There was this A-10 Warthog crashed on Substack. I saw the video, and it's hit by a missile. Let's see what Drudge says. Oh, you got to give a shout out to Shanaka. Shanaka on Substack is like nobody can keep up with him. So, headline on Drudge Report, top left is inside the president's search for a way out of the Iran war. So let's finish with that. There isn't one. There is no negotiated settlement. There is no there's no military. Like if we did something crazy, like use a tactical nuclear weapon, like on Tehran or something, I I think like the American financial markets would just go to zero. Nobody would do business. By the way, it says in the book of Revelation that the great city that everybody will see smoking, 9/11, will recover, but eventually no one will do business with it. That's in the book of Revelation. Yeah, of course, Americans, whenever they read the book of Revelation, they always point to somebody else and say, they're the bad guy, not us, right? But it's clear in the book of Revelation that the great city that, how's it go? The world shares in its fornications or some delights in its fornications or something like that. Clearly, that has to be Los Angeles and New York. The great city that controls the seas, that controls global commerce, that has to be New York City. And we are moving towards something where we grew up with a dollar that could be literally printed. And Ben Bernanke went on 60 Minutes and said, it's a couple $1 trillion worth of losses, we'll just print them. In public, just says it, right? And the world sort of goes along with it until the world doesn't go along with it anymore. And so far, let's go back to the private equity thing, just because I know you all want to talk about the stock market. Really, when you look at the NASDAQ, at the like stocks like Oracle, to a lesser degree, Microsoft, what you're really looking at is a debt problem, not an equity problem. You know, they didn't make as much earnings as they thought, blah, blah, blah. There's all this, there's hundreds of billions of dollars of debt, either on the balance sheet of these companies or off the balance sheets of like Oracle and Facebook and so forth. And it just keeps going into OpenAI, and there's nothing there. There's no business model there. So tomorrow we'll do Leaves of Grass. If you think about what Americans really need, is they need to get out of this fantasy world of fake wars, fake fake outcomes, fake victories. You know, Trump goes hour to hour, like from we're making a ceasefire to we already beat them to we'll be out in 2.5 weeks to this, to that, the other, because he doesn't see a way out. We could see, like, I don't know, just ask yourself, what would it look like if Tel Aviv was overrun by Hezbollah? What's the financial markets look like? What would how would America respond to that? What would it look like if Houthi forces like took over the pipeline in the Red Sea where all the Saudi oil is being pumped so it doesn't have to go in the other direction? What would it look like if Dubai was overrun by Iranian troops or something like that? Or Baghdad was overrun by Iraqi Hezbollah? Or what if all these things happen at the same time, like a Tet offensive? What do the American financial markets look like? I don't even know if they exist. I don't even know if there's be real trading. $200 oil, 250. Like the price of oil, like silver before the war. Silver it was like what, $75 or something like that, $80, $79. But if you bought a coin from the mint, it was $170. And the prices in Asia were twice what they were in like SLV, the silver ETF. The same's happening in oil. The oil out in the ocean is $160, $170 a barrel, and that the Brent is like at 99 or 104. But the real oil moving on the ocean is almost double. We could see that across all the markets. Bonds will be quoted at 5%, 4.5%, 5%, but there won't be any real trading. It'll just be some sort of weird circulation between the Treasury and the banks and the Fed just doing a big circular thing, which by law they're allowed to do. Problem is the Fed has to print money in order to do that. So I guess you've probably seen the thing where Trump back in the 80s said, like, let's just go take Carg Island. Well, the oil isn't produced on Carg Island. It's just where the pipe comes out. But it appears that the president of the United States thinks that, like, if we capture Carg Island, we get their oil. I mean, hold on a minute. So he basically said to our allies, he said to the Europeans, he said, just go take it. Just go take the Straits of Hormuz. What does that even look like? Oops. But the other one that I think he said today was about the oil. Yeah. Today he said, he posted on Truth Social that, quote, a little more time, the U.S. could easily reopen the Straits of Hormuz, take the oil, make a fortune. He described the potential windfall as a gusher for the world. Just grab him right in the vagina. Told the Europeans to, quote, go get your own oil. He said we don't need Middle Eastern oil. Of course, the rest of the world does, and prices are based on that. Like, how would you even, like, take the oil? But it's quite possible that this is just a big historical thing that's happening, and he's just the asshole reality TV star going, you're fired. Take the oil. Just go and take it. Just take it. And then, like, Mark Levin is saying, like, we should send, like, Ranger battalions in to just take it, just take the uranium, all 4,000 tons of it. I mean, like, how are they going to, like, pack out the uranium? So, but instead of just, like, sort of piling on here, tomorrow at noon for everybody who wants to be involved, we're going to talk about what the other side of we're going to go through a thing for the next. The Book of Revelation says that Trump's only going to last 42 months, if you like that sort of thing. Just, we'll see what happens in 42 months. It says this man of perdition, beast of the earth kind of a thing will reign for 42 months. You watch. I did the thing, Butler. I said, like, they pierced his ear. It's in the Bible. It's pretty common on Substack for people to talk about that now. We'll see what happens in the 42-month thing. That he is the kind of sacrificial, crazed bull that just shouts these inanities at the world, like, we're just going to take you all. Like, you know what I mean? But what does reality of investing look like on the other side? And it's the things that we actually need that nobody invests in: food, energy, education, healthcare, housing, etc. So we'll see you tomorrow at noon. We'd like you. I don't do this very often. I will. Let me put in my pitch tonight. You know how the people are like, like and subscribe? I never say that, with the idea that if you like it and you want to subscribe, you will. However, I will this time, because I think you're underestimating how much power you have if we all work together. Not in a political way. If you want to go do politics, that's fun. But tomorrow at noon, we're going to do the leaves of grass thing. If we get 4 or 5,000 people like who understand all this new finance, what you think is crypto, it's not really crypto, it's the new tech underneath the financial system. If you really understand how that works and how to deploy it, and how all these systems are meant to be decentralized, you have just an unbelievable opportunity that I've been on here for 5 years trying to explain to you. I will take a victory lap about the Ethereum thing, but even I didn't know that was going to be the whole basis of the banking system, of the SWIFT system. It was announced 4 days ago. So, see you tomorrow at noon. Let's see if we can let's see if we can do a Mr. Snardley here. I do respond to DMs, by the way. You know I'd fuck that up.